Cadet Zixvar had been the pride of the Vorthanian Military Academy for 3 standard years. Top of his class in tactical analysis, exemplary marks in xenobiology, and a service record that had already caught the attention of the high command. His instructors frequently cited him as the ideal model of Vorthanian military excellence, logical, methodical, and utterly committed to the principles of civilized warfare as practiced throughout the galaxy. That was before the Human Studies seminar. The course had been added to the curriculum following humanity's formal admission to the Galactic Defense Consortium. Professor Thekmore had introduced it as a routine orientation session designed to familiarize cadets with the military capabilities and tactical doctrines of their newest allies. Standard procedure for any species joining the galactic community. Today, we'll be reviewing historical military footage from Earth's pre-contact period, Professor Thekmore announced to the assembled class of 47 cadets representing 12 different species. This will help you understand human strategic thinking and their approach to conflict resolution. The lights dimmed and the holographic display activated. What followed was a comprehensive survey of human military history, starting with ancient battles and progressing through millennia of increasingly sophisticated warfare. The alien cadets watched with academic interest as primitive humans fought with spears and shields, then with gunpowder weapons, then with mechanized armies. Everything seemed normal until they reached the 20th century. The footage of World War I made several cadets shift uncomfortably in their seats. The concept of trench warfare, of deliberately creating conditions where soldiers lived in mud and filth for months at a time, was alien to species that approached conflict as a series of calculated engagements with clear objectives and minimal duration. But it was the Battle of Verdun that made Cadet Zixvar begin to question everything he thought he knew about warfare. The engagement lasted 300 standard days, Professor Thekmore narrated in his clinical tone. Human casualties exceeded 700,000. Both sides continued fighting despite conditions that would be considered uninhabitable by galactic standards. The holographic display showed images that burned themselves into Zixvar's memory. Humans fighting in shell-cratered wastelands that looked like the surface of a dead moon. Soldiers advancing through poison gas that would kill unprotected beings in minutes. Medical personnel treating wounded under artillery bombardment that never seemed to stop. Note the psychological resilience displayed, the professor continued. Humans continued to function effectively in environments that would cause complete mental breakdown in most galactic species within hours. World War II was worse. The cadets watched in stunned silence as the scope of human conflict expanded to encompass entire continents, involving civilian populations in ways that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The siege of Stalingrad, the Pacific Island campaigns, the systematic destruction of entire cities. It painted a picture of a species that approached war not as a necessary evil to be concluded quickly, but as a total commitment of their entire civilization. But it was the footage from D-Day that broke something fundamental in Zixvar's worldview. The holographic display showed thousands of human soldiers charging across open beaches into machine gun fire that cut them down in waves. They watched men die by the hundreds only to see more humans immediately take their place, advancing over the bodies of their fallen comrades with a determination that seemed to transcend rational thought. Casualties in the first hour exceeded 12,000, Professor Thekmore noted. The assault continued for 11 hours. Human forces sustained these losses while maintaining tactical coherence and achieving their strategic objectives. A Zentorian cadet raised a tentacle. Professor, surely this footage has been altered for dramatic effect. No species could sustain such losses and continue fighting. The footage is authentic, came the reply. Moreover, this represents typical human performance under comparable conditions. Their military history contains hundreds of similar examples. The seminar continued with more recent conflicts. Vietnam, the Falklands, Iraq, Afghanistan. Each one reinforced the same unsettling pattern. Humans thought in jungles that would poison most galactic species. in deserts that would kill them through exposure, in urban environments so hostile that simply surviving required constant vigilance. They fought for objectives that sometimes seemed barely worth the cost. Yet they fought with the same inexplicable determination, whether the stakes were a strategic position or simple pride. Note the consistency of human performance across environmental conditions, Professor Thekmore observed. Desert, jungle, Arctic, urban. Their tactical effectiveness remains constant regardless of external factors that would severely degrade the capabilities of other species. But what truly disturbed Zixvar wasn't the scale of human warfare or their apparent immunity to conditions that would break other species. It was the footage of what humans did after their wars ended. The display showed German cities being rebuilt by the same American soldiers who had helped destroy them. Japanese civilians receiving medical aid from the forces that had defeated them. Former enemies working together to establish peaceful relations that had lasted for decades. The humans didn't just fight with inhuman determination, they forgave with equal intensity. Human post-conflict behavior is unique among known species, the professor explained. They possess the psychological capacity to shift from total warfare to total peace with remarkable speed and effectiveness. As the seminar concluded, Zixvar sat in his chair, staring at the now dark holographic display. Around him, his classmates discussed the tactical implications of human military doctrine, analyzing their strategies and debating their effectiveness. But all Zixvar could think about were the faces he had seen in that footage. Humans advancing through hell itself with expressions of grim determination, then turning around to help their enemies rebuild what they had destroyed. That evening, he submitted his resignation from the Forthanian Military Academy. His commanding officer, Colonel Vexthara, reviewed the resignation request with confusion. "Cadet Zixvar, your record is exemplary. You're destined for high command. What possible reason could you have for abandoning your military career?" Zixvar stood at attention, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his thoughts. "Sir, after reviewing human military history, I've realized that I fundamentally misunderstood the nature of warfare. I believed military service was about tactical superiority, strategic thinking, and the efficient application of force to achieve political objectives. And now? Now I understand that true military capability isn't about tactics or strategy or efficiency. It's about the willingness to endure the unendurable, to continue fighting when continuation seems impossible, and to maintain humanity even in the midst of inhuman conditions." Zixvar paused, then added quietly, "I'm not sure any of us are psychologically capable of warfare as humans practice it." Colonel Vexthara considered this for a long moment. "And you believe this disqualifies you from military service?" "No, sir," Zixvar replied. "I believe it disqualifies our military from ever truly understanding what we're allied with. Humans don't just have armies, they are armies. Every one of them carries the psychological capacity for total war and total peace. We're not allies with a military force. We're allies with an entire species that treats war as just another job that needs doing." He straightened his uniform one final time. "I'm resigning because I realize that in any conflict serious enough to require human intervention, our military contribution will be largely symbolic, and I'd rather spend my life doing something where I can actually make a meaningful contribution." As Zixvar left the colonel's office, turning in his uniform and insignia, word of his resignation began to spread through the academy. Within a week, 17 other cadets had submitted similar requests. Within a month, the Galactic Defense Consortium quietly began restructuring their entire approach to human integration. After all, when your newest allies consider your most devastating conflicts to be minor regional disputes, it tends to change your perspective on galactic security. The universe, it seemed, was a much more peaceful place than anyone had realized. They just hadn't met the species responsible for keeping it that way.